Hi.
Hi.
Virtual high five.
Woo!
You have to go farther.
That's funny.
Oh, goodness. I know. How's it going?
Oh, it's another crazy day trying to figure things out.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that like it's kind of crazy what can go on in the mind. I noticed yesterday after having this conversation with you and then being aware of the background noise and what have you, and feeling embarrassed about that, feeling like oh, like should be better, right? That it's crazy that my mind will do that all the time. And the other thing that is been on my mind is like that I've been working on launching this podcast on behalf of the center and for us, and as it gets closer to sort of being finished and ready to go, I'm like, the closer it gets to that, the more I'm like, is it even relevant right now? Like there's such bigger fish to fry, and like, yeah, just like, where does it all fit? What do I have to contribute at a crazy, unprecedented time?
I know, it's curious. So I was on Slack with reading some of the stuff the board was posting today, this afternoon. And I didn't like it. I didn't like some of the things that were being said. Not that anybody was being wrong or bad, but some of the anticipations of what our future is going to look like. I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. And yeah, it's really sitting heavy in me right now. Like yeah, I don't like it.
I think that's probably what all this is poking at, is the parts of us that already have, buttons of insecurity and or fear and or loss and or challenge, like all, like we're just like this complex makeup of all these memories. And so like the fact that anybody has anything to say right now at large that hits one of those just like brings it up, but really showing us that it's there, I guess, already.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I think I talked yesterday about my need for control. I was talking about it with Tuli earlier, and how I just get busy and put things in neat little boxes. I tidied up my kitchen. We got rid of a dishwasher that was leaking and smelling. Like, we got rid of that today. Like, I'm just neatening things up and organizing things and getting a load of dirt today. And so when I read something that pushes that button in me of it's not, it's the control of not knowing, I suppose, or the idea of not knowing, and so therefore feeling out of control of what is mine to do. Because when I think about it, if I think about my childhood, I became very acutely aware of what was needed to be done in order to modulate, is that the right word? So if this is normal and everybody's happy and content, and if our household could get to this place where my parents are fighting and they're arguing, and as a child that feels really unstable. So I learned to attune to that and modulate my behavior to affect that barometer of, happy, content, easygoing, to crazy making, angry, nobody's happy. And so without having a barometer for what is to come or what is happening, or, without having a measurement in any way, I don't know how to do, you know what I mean? Like, I'm kind of at a loss of, well, what is mine to do? How can I make it better? What actions can I take? How can I put it in neat little boxes? And,
Yeah, totally. Guess like, Yeah, it's just bringing up all the stuff that's internally going on in our inner worlds. I know that like um when I'm okay internally, like, you know, such as maybe what's a good example of that, like falling in love, right? Like, you know, my inner world's just like yay, and my heart's just going and everything's happy. I can get like some bad news, you know, or you know, something can go awry in some other aspect of life, and I'm like, that's okay.
Right?
I'm in love.
Yeah, right?
So the, you know, the inner world, like wherever we are, whatever's going on or whatever has gone on or whatever exists deep down inside of us, you know, just is reflected, is opened up when, you know, based on what's going on in the outside world.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like an example for me last night when I texted you and asked you to clear off some things on the calendar. So just, yeah, the people who have canceled the events here at the center. And so my calendar has orange. That's orange on my calendar. And I'm like, well, I want to see the emptiness on my calendar. And I
Like
want to
getting
see,
rid of your dishwasher.
yes, like getting rid of my dishwasher. And I want to see where it was happening, and I want to see where it isn't happening, and where it potentially will be happening in the future. So I kind of use a very visual guide that way.
Mm-hmm.
And so the little do we had on the text last night makes I'm feeling disconnected from you just in that little thing. And connection with you is really important to me. Oh my gosh, I feel the tears. because because even in my own relationship in my home, um, navigating that, you know, Blake doesn't have his regular meetings and events to go to, so he's feeling isolated in that home far more than I am, because my job still goes on. I
Mm-hmm.
still am connecting and reaching out and spending time with people. May not be physical, but I still am spending a lot of time with people.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Yeah, it's interesting how that, you know, that that all it takes is that little encounter, just a small back and forth text message about the calendar to
Right.
bring up whatever's going on
Right.
for us.
No,
It's
oh no, I've pissed Collette off again.
no, it was like, on my end, it was equally as insightful, interesting, because um, I knew that it was coming from I know you well enough to know that it was coming from some semblance of, I want to get my house in order here. And yet, like, my mind, how I keep track of everything and how I organize the happenings at the center, like, it's very different from how you do it. And so I was using the calendar in a different way. And so and we know I can be a hard ass. So I was just like, no, you're trying to get your house in order and it's affecting how I do this, and you need to back off. And then, like, you know, noticing that part of me, it didn't take very long. I sat there for not very long and was like, okay, no, you know what? I can find a different way and I can do this, because it just creates ease. Why not?
I
Creating
know.
ease, my
So right
friend.
after I said, never mind, don't worry, it's all good. I don't need it. I can turn that part of my calendar off. All of a sudden I see delete, delete coming across my computer. I'm like, oh, she's doing it. I thought she wasn't going to.
One of those things where I get the opportunity to go, like, do I really need to have a particular way of doing this, or can I be more fluid and flexible? So it's
Yeah.
very relevant, because, like, I bet you tons of people have tons of little moments in their life like that, where, whatever is going on for them, their things, like getting the house in order, or no, I want to do it this way, or whatever it brings up a kaleidoscope of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And in the tiniest moments, and if we're not, like, aware of that, if we're not,
Yeah.
we don't have, like, we're not practicing a self-awareness, we're not even gonna notice. We're just gonna do.
And even the noticing, you know, being with people who aren't as diligent in, and I don't mean diligent in a negative sense or positive sense. I know you and I work really hard at paying attention to those little triggers and the push buttons and recognizing our own agenda around that. So when I'm with people who aren't quite as, aren't practicing that in the same way, is a better way to say it, aren't taking the same time to notice the parts of themselves that feel incongruent or feel triggered or feel resentful or feel whatever's up. When I'm with people like that, I find that a very difficult territory to navigate because I quickly take, I work very it's hard to put all the words right. I work very hard at seeing my part in it and wanting to have a dialogue to clear the energy. But when I'm having a dialogue with somebody who isn't as aware, and so the dialogue doesn't go back and forth as easily, it's much more challenging for me to find this place. Like I know for you, it's really challenging and it can be really hard, but I can stand in it and I know that we're going to navigate through it. And we're so aware of our own individual buttons, like mine, who I am hurts people. So when I asked to do this thing on the calendar, right away, what comes up for me when you're like, why do we have to do that? And you say you're a hard ass. And I'm like, oh shit, there I am. I hurt her again. Right. It just comes up. And then I get to go, oh, wait a minute. No, I didn't. Right. And so I get to catch myself in that. And then you and I get to have these kinds of conversations and we get to move past through it. But when I'm with somebody who isn't aware and doesn't want it or doesn't even want to have this conversation, then for me, it creates this distancing. It creates this, I don't know. It's not comfortable. I can't put it in a little box.
Just brings up another button that already exists inside.
Right?
Yeah, and and thank you for like kind of going through that scenario again, because I realize like when you say who I am hurts people, mine comes from more of a place of my hard assness comes from more of a place of the fear of being criticized and like you're going to dissect, you're going to put me in the middle of the table, me and my calendar, and dissect how I'm doing things.
Right.
Like, right. And yeah, I get the piece of why, I guess that's why it's so valuable, why I find the center so valuable, why I find conscious relationships so valuable, because being able to have these conversations, like really try them, really practice them, really try them on, really rub up against them is always the biggest piece of value I find within this community is people are willing to do it too, to whatever degree, but like they're willing to do it. And so I was like reading that conscious leadership webinar thing you sent out earlier, and I had just look over it, and it said double down on your practice.
Right. And you have.
Right. And I totally have. And some of the bullet point things, it's like, yep, here we are. We're doing this. We're still doing it. And there, to me, is like, I think it's probably really easy to lose. Like I was thinking about how many people are throwing out their practices in a place of overwhelm. How easy that would be to happen. And Jamie's in the background. He raises his hand.
What? You're not meditating every 10 minutes a day, Jamie? Come on.
And what was I going to say now?
How people throw out their practices.
Yes, how easy that would be, and really how much I see importance in like holding on to purpose and practice more
Mm.
than ever, and how much it helps me. Mm.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. Like I meditated, I got a nice full 30 minutes in this morning and it seemed to go really fast. And when I first sat down, I was like, oh, I am way too anxious to meditate. And it's like, no, sit your butt on this couch and just do it.
Mm-hmm.
And before I knew it, it was like, oh yeah, this I like meditation. It was such a calming, it's so calming and so centering, and it's like going home when I meditate,
Yeah.
how I feel. Uh and when I have my granddaughter with me, Mirabelle, it's much more difficult because she wakes up before me, and I like to meditate first thing in the morning the best. And she wakes up before me, so what I was doing was trying to wake up before her, but I didn't dare move in bed because we sleep beside each other in the same room. And so I would just lie there and I meditate lying very still until she woke up. So I get maybe 15 minutes in, and then she pounces on me. So it's a little bit different. Then it's like, boom, awake, grandma.
Mm-hmm. I have a hard time even putting into words what meditation does.
I mean, it's like journaling too, though. It's like when I journal, this is my journal. I made this lovely journal um, with Stephanie's small group, and she bought a whole bunch of just lined notebooks,
Mm-hmm.
and then we put pictures on the front of the notebooks. I think we got them on the inside too, yeah, and on the inside of the notebooks, and then we taped it with just packing tape to make it a nice stiff and durable water resistant cover. Anyway, when I journal, I find like I start writing. To me, it's like it's the same as I feel with meditation. It's like it's home, because who am I writing to? I'm writing to myself.
Yeah.
And so I write to myself, and I tell things to myself, and I tell about my life to myself. And so meditation for me is very similar in that way. It's like, well, who am I meditating for? Oh, it's myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I get to go home right here. And I get to think. Sometimes I decide to contemplate and I think about something. And sometimes I think about my breathing. And sometimes I visualize seeing my spirit guide and having a conversation with her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's kind of home. It's whatever I want to do there.
Yeah. And it's not this home.
Mm-mm.
This home. It's this home. It's like the makes me feel the the part of us that isn't the us, like, no, the part of us that isn't the us we think is the us, but it's like the deeper who I actually am, like the witnesser, the
Mm-hmm.
witnesser in both of those.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. Yeah. And I get to sit with an idea. Like I get to, I'm thinking about my gardening, and I get to think about my garden and what I want to do as I'm meditating, and I visualize it, and I go, yeah, yeah. Or I go, nah, nah. Okay, let's breathe. Like it's just.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that part is our guiding light, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yes, totally. Right. Like that. Sometimes, I know it happens for you a lot. I find in meditation, things piece together for me often, like if I don't know what I want to do next, or what vision I have for myself, or it could be anything. It could be, oh, I feel like cauliflower pizza tonight. But creating that stillness allows whatever wants to bubble up and be felt and heard and experienced from here. I've given space for that. And I'm surprised because I don't actually give it thought when I'm in the meditation. And it's not until later in the day that maybe I'm dialoguing with you or somebody else, and it's like, oh yeah, in meditation I had this idea, right? And I realize it came from that, but I didn't have the thought about it at the time, like, oh, that's an idea I've got to write down. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Totally.
like I've opened a window, and it's like I've opened a dirty window that I couldn't see through very well, and now I can see. And so that sight stays with me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What have you opened the window to?
Recently or
No,
today?
in that moment when you
Oh,
describe opening a window.
yeah, it's like that. To me, it's clarity, and that clarity comes from dropping from here to here.
Mm-hmm.
That I feel like the opening of the window, like this, is the dirt, and it's the I don't have enough money. What's going to happen? Or oh, what's going to happen if we don't work and the center's closed? And what's going to happen if I can't see my mom? And all these things. That's what this is. It's dirt. And so when I sit down to meditate and I open the window, it opens to this heart space of just knowing. It's just like, ah, and everything gets clear and sharp and brighter,
Nice.
and this fades away, becomes less important.
Well, I think that's a beautiful place to end this conversation. I
Mm.
can go meditate.
I think you're going to be meditating on a two-wheel bike out in the mountain.
I am.
That sounds good to me. Okay, well, thank you for this time, Collette.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Love you.
You too.
Bye.